Every single person on the bus, including her grandparents, were moved to tears by the sweet little girl who had made place on the bus for her grandmother. This story genuinely captures the innocent sweetness of children, leaving you both heartbroken and happy at what that little youngster said. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. At 4 years old, Lola was a pretty young girl. She visited her grandparents, Grandpa Joe and Grandma Marita, every weekend. She had large blue eyes and beautiful black hair. They would occasionally go on trips or simply stay home and bake or paint. Lola didn't care. All she knew was that she enjoyed being with her grandparents and that they enjoyed being with her as well. They had visited an old castle not too distant from their house before. Lola recalled that her grandmother had given her a little plastic sword and a helmet to make her appear like a knight. After fighting her Grandpa Joe around the ancient ruins, she had enjoyed a lovely lunch in the sun. It was undoubtedly a wonderful day. Lola liked spending time with her grandparents and eagerly anticipated the weekend. When Lola was visiting her grandparents one Saturday in particular, things were a little unusual. When it was time for her to go, her Grandpa Joe gave her an extra long embrace and her Grandma Marita had watery eyes. She had a lovely day despite not understanding what was going on, and she even asked if they could go ice skating the next week. Her grandparents agreed, both of them grinning pitifully. Before leaving, Lola made sure to give her grandparents a particularly strong embrace and told them how much she loved them before her mother arrived to take her up. But you'll be heartbroken to learn the cause for this intense conversation. You see, Lola was ignorant of the fact that her grandfather had a fatal kind of cancer. He had been fighting it for several months, but regrettably, things were beginning to become worse for him. Despite the doctor's advice to visit the hospital, he persisted on spending one final typical Sunday with Lola. Regretfully, Lola's grandfather Joe died away in his sleep a few short days later, with his wife Marita at his side, clutching his hand the whole time. Naturally, it was an extremely depressing moment. After a few days, Lola and her parents found themselves entering a large church. She too was dressed entirely in black. She saw a strange, tall box in front of the altar, but she had no idea what was going on. When she inquired about the situation, her mother appeared to be too distressed to speak at the time. Lola's dad promised to provide an explanation shortly. Satisfied with her response, she remained silent during the ceremony. Occasionally, she would glance down the line of people and see Marita, her grandmother, standing there. She was obviously depressed, but not in the way that Lola's mother had been. Lola felt a peculiar pride in her grandmother and a strong want to go give her a huge embrace as she stood upright, seeming like she was trying to be courageous. Nevertheless, she felt this wasn't the right moment or place, so she said nothing. Lola's father eventually sat her down and went through everything with her later that day. He informed her that Grandpa Joe had passed away and that he had not been feeling well. She would tragically never see him again, yet there he was in the box in front of the altar. Though Lola didn't entirely understand what all of this meant, her heart fell. She understood that if someone passed away, they were not going to return, but she was still unable to really understand what was happening, at least not just yet. Lola approached Grandma Marita at her Grandpa Joe's wake and smiled broadly. With a sorrowful grin, her grandmother hugged her tightly. Lola thought her Grandma Marita's long black dress was really pretty, especially with all the frills at the hem and cuffs. Lola spun around to flaunt her own clothing. Her grandmother said she looked stunning. Marita was informed by Lola's mother that she was not need to watch Lola this week. It was just the day following the burial, and Marita really didn't need to be taking a kid to the ice rink. Marita, however, demanded that she saw her granddaughter normally. It would provide her with the feeling of normalcy she much needed at this point in her life. Thus, like every week, Lola was left off to her grandmother, Grandma Marita, first thing the next morning. However, this time, Grandpa Joe wasn't there to welcome her with a huge embrace and a goofy smile. Even at the age of 4, she was aware that her grandmother was experiencing a dreadful situation. Lola knew her grandmother must have been grieving at her husband's death, even if she was unable to fully understand the feelings at the time. As they got to the bus station and waited for the bus, she made sure to hold her grandmother's hand especially tightly. Even though Grandma Marita wasn't talking as much as usual, she still tried to engage Lola in lighthearted, enjoyable chats while they waited. When the bus finally arrived, they boarded it. There was hardly enough space for Lola to sit down because it was rather crowded. Marita staggered back a little as the bus took off and grabbed a seat to help her balance. Lola informed her grandmother it was time for her to have a seat, shuffling around and making place. Grinning at her grandchild, Marita contentedly sat down beside Lola. She wrapped her arm around the young child and expressed her gratitude for her generosity, as well as for not being egotistical and considering others. It was a sweet quality to develop in a girl of that age. Marita was silent as the bus moved further. With a dejected smile, she glanced down at her wedding band. These when Lola realized she recognized the same dejected smile from the funeral the day before. Lola told her grandmother, "I think you looked beautiful at Grandpa Joe's funeral yesterday, and I think he would have been proud of you for how brave you were." Grandma Marita was shaken and left feeling touched and more than a little emotional. Lola gave her grandmother her best smile once more. It came out of Lola's lips like it was meant to, and it gave her an air of wisdom that belied her youth. Startled by what Lola had just said, Rita looked up and her eyes began to well up with tears. That was the most heartfelt thing anybody could have spoken to her at that very moment, and the fact that her granddaughter had said it added even more poignancy. Rita reached into her pocket for her handkerchief, rubbing at her wet cheeks and eyes, then drew Lola in close and kissed her gently on the forehead. Lola grinned and simply enjoyed the embrace, blissfully oblivious of the significance of the words she had just said. However, that's when she heard a faint sniffle and weep, and it wasn't her grandmother. Upon surveying the surroundings, Lola saw that the young girl's words had left everyone on the bus in tears. A number of individuals started crying, and some just silently let the tears fall down their faces as they peered out the window. It really was a shared experience for all of them at that same instant in time. Everyone on the bus could relate to that one little sincere, spontaneous moment that this adorable young girl had produced. Everyone knew what it was like to love and lose someone. Rita turned to glance around as well, and several of the other passengers nodded and grinned at her, some even whispering their sympathies. Even though these individuals were complete strangers to Rita and Lola, they were able to partake in their unique moment and sensed Rita's suffering. It was amazing, and Lola's grandmother would never know how much it meant to her. What were your thoughts on this endearing tale? If you had heard a toddler utter something so endearing yet depressing, how would you have responded? Would you have had the self-control to stop crying? Please feel free to share your views and comments with us in the comment box below. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.